And welcome to Triple Threat. We are the all talk, no music show online on YouTube about the Beatles, The Who, and Pink Floyd. And my name is Tom Rutia, and joining me are my good friends Garrett Hicks.
Hey!
And Becca Cristino. And for this episode, it's going to be a little bit different. We're not going to be reviewing anything. We're not going to be giving any kind of lists or anything. We wanted to do something special because recently we surpassed 100 subscribers, putting us in the triple-digit amounts, finally. So we reached out to people on our YouTube channel to ask for some questions. We wanted to do a Q&A. And we've gathered some questions, and we've also picked out a few of our own to kind of chat and discuss. And it's kind of crazy because we're doing this in the year 2018, and if anyone has been with us since we started on Mixcloud before we came to YouTube, we started in 2013, which makes it 5 years now.
Yeah, it's our combination 5-year and 100 subscriber anniversary special or something.
Right.
Huh. Go figure.
Right?
Yeah.
Disgusting and also fake.
We did say at some point we did want to do something along the lines for a 5-year anniversary, kind of like our story. I know we've talked about it in bits and pieces.
Yeah, we might do something else later, but
for now, this was a Q&A, and we said we wanted to celebrate getting 100 subscribers.
yeah, and thank y'all for that, by the way.
Yes, we do absolutely want to say thank you before we continue. It's really awesome to check our channel every so number of days, and we see that we've gained a new subscriber, and just to see it go from 110 to 111 is just awesome. So yeah, like I said, we reached out for some questions, and we got some comments, and we're going to read them and have a little discussion. Yeah. So our first comment came from, and I do apologize to any of the names if I'm butchering them, Isabella and Jaden's Garden Adventures. I guess that's where they have their adventures.
I mean, that's a good place to start.
They simply say, congrats on reaching 100 subscribers. Well, thank you, Isabella and Jaden. That's not a question, but thank you anyway. And then next, we got a comment from, and I do again apologize, and Gary, maybe you can help me out on this one. Costas Hansis.
I've never heard him say his name.
He's from across the pond.
Yeah.
But
Costas lives in Greece.
Oh, cool.
So
we have fans in Greece.
Yeah, right.
Or at least one fan in Greece. But hey, we'll take it.
Yeah. He reached out to us a little while ago because at the time he was writing a book about Pink Floyd's discography and wanted to interview us for it or something. I don't think he's continuing with that project right now, but anyway, what's his question, Tom?
His question is Pink Floyd related, and he asks us, are you planning to do a review on every Floyd album? And I would certainly say we certainly can.
I want to, because I could talk about Pink Floyd all damn day.
Well, if you take a look at what we have discussed and reviewed, we've done Dark Side of the Moon, Wish You Were Here. We did The Wall on our previous podcast, Triple Threat.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, the Record Rant. Thank you. It's the alliterations that get me.
Yeah.
And we did The Division Bell and The Endless River. So that's 5, and there's 15. So we're a third of the way there. And also, we did do the Creation set when the early years set was coming out.
Right.
So we have quite a pile of Pink Floyd reviews. So in answer to your question, Costas, I can say it certainly is possible that we can review all of them.
Yeah, it gets tricky though because sometimes, I have to be in a very specific mood to talk Pink Floyd though. You know?
Yeah, I'm kind of the same.
And luckily that mood is pretty often, but for me anyway, I usually have to be on like my Pink Floyd bender of the year or whatever it is to really get interested in it and talk about it.
I'm kind of the same way. I remember specifically when we reviewed Endless River, I gave the album 2 grades when we were grading it at the end. I said 8 on my normal day and 8.5 when I'm on my Floyd Bender days,
Yeah.
because it's like when you're on your Bender days, it's like everything they do is amazing, even if it's not.
Yeah.
True.
So I gave it 8 and then 8.5 on those extra special days. And when we certainly reviewed Division Bell, as I mentioned, is not an album that I play a lot simply because of its heavy themes, and it's also pretty lengthy. It's what it was the '90s we're talking about,
Yeah.
when they could jam pack a CD with 80 minutes,
Yeah.
and you didn't always have to do that. So it's not always an album I pull out a lot, but when reviewed it, I reviewed it pretty positively. So I can definitely agree what you say about the Floyd Benders and wanting to review things. And I'll put this out there right now: people who are listening and think that we've listened to this music, on a daily basis.
That's a no.
It is not only a no, but we are not sycophants. We don't love everything.
Yeah.
We don't always go for it's a 10 out of 10 rating because it's a Pink Floyd album.
Right, no. I mean, Becca's shared many times before her feelings about Sisyphus, for example.
Absolute garbage. So bad. So bad. And that's a pure example of how we do not let bias get to us.
Yeah.
Because, that is a perfect example of that.
Right, because everyone who knows Becca and related to Pink Floyd knows that Rick is her favorite member, and you'd think that a solo composition done entirely by him, from the writing to the performing, would be right up her alley, but no. It's pretty garbage.
No, it's in a dark alley she does not want to go down.
I repress it, I drink to forget it. No, bad.
Well, Becca, I wanted to pass this question over to you. Do you think we could review every Pink Floyd album?
Yeah, I feel like we could do that. It is possible, but just, between the fact that it's already thus far, in 5 years, we've covered 5 albums. And since this has been going for 5 years, there's been a lot of life happening between the 3 of us, and it's continuing to happen a whole lot. It would take a while.
Yeah.
It would definitely take a long time, but
I think we could, yeah.
they're all worth exploring to some degree. They all have something you can talk about.
Yeah.
Whether it be good or bad, as we said before,
Right.
And I think the whole constant glowing reviews has to do with the albums we chose to discuss are very heavy hitters. Huge, big deal albums like the Division Bell, Dark Side, the classic. But we haven't picked up something more.
Yeah.
Right.
Sauceable, or something that's just weird and in there yet. That would have maybe not necessarily a more nuanced discussion, but a different discussion.
Yeah, that's something that I've been trying to push for, is getting the less commonly
More obscure ones.
Yeah, the more obscure Floyd albums, and for not even just Floyd, for the other bands we do too. There isn't really an obscure Beatles album, but I would really love to tackle more of the solo discography. And and then the Who has their ups and downs. I would like to look at some of those, even though I know that some of it just plain isn't interesting to some of us. Like Becca, you for example, I don't think you said you've heard any of the Post Moon albums.
I heard which ones you bet on?
Face Dances.
Yeah.
Yeah, Face Dances is a bop.
But definitely something like Endless Wire, which we had the review by ourselves. And I don't think we're wrong, to do that. If really, the last thing we want anyone to do is force them to listen to something that they don't really want to, or for the sake of for a review. And I think reviewing the more obscure albums would also be beneficial for us to pull that CD out and kind of take that sigh and go, that's just an album. I just don't pull out a lot. But you know what? You might be missing some gem on there, or something that you just don't remember because you haven't pulled it out. I remember when we did the Creation review, and there were the 3 remixed tracks from Obscured by Clouds, and I got the Childhood's End. It was like, oh my goodness, that is a killer song.
Yeah. Doing that review actually made me go back and listen to Obscured by Clouds with a more critical ear and be like, oh, dude, this album is freaking cool.
Obscured slaps. I've been saying it for years. It exactly. That's what it does. You know, like not necessarily forces you, but it like go back into something you might have missed over. In our cases, years ago,
Yeah.
and come back to it with like a fresh set of ears.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of fresh set of ears, like when we had our buddy Peter on, shout out Peter if you're still listening.
Peter!
When he joined us on the My Generation album review, it was the first time he heard that album in its entirety.
Yeah.
And he was able to come in with sort of fresh set of ears, because we've heard it for years. And he came in saying, yeah, I know My Generation and the kids are all right. And he was able to say, you know, but this song, you know, fill in the blank, I really like this one.
Yeah.
Even if he had no context, if he didn't know it was a cover or a Pete Townsend original, he could just say, you know what, I like that song.
Yeah.
And that was cool. And it can be cool if we pick up, you know, an obscure album that we've heard only once or never really even bothered to pick up. Like, Garrett's given me a few of John Entwistle's solo records, and if we reviewed one, he'd have listened to it obviously more times than I have.
Oh, yeah.
So I'd be the one coming in with fresh ears, but I would still give it a fair review and not just I've heard it once and now I'm going to review it.
Yeah, because let me tell y'all, Thunderfingers has got some killer tracks on his first two albums. But then
on his first two albums. And so
I think we've answered this question.
I think we have answered the question. So long answer short, Costas. Yes, we.
That's the plan.
We can review all of them.
So a question that I think is probably on at least some listeners' minds, we kind of alluded to it before, is that we can't listen to our triple threat music all the time, right? So what do we each listen to on our off time?
You mean there's other music?
Right? Yeah, I know. And I'm sure some of you may be surprised by our answers, I think. Probably not so much by, like, I'm remembering our first episode where Becca introduced herself by saying, I've met the Flaming Lips, I've met the Flaming Lips, I've met the Flaming Lips.
And
And
that's all you need to know about me.
Gee, I wonder what else she listens to. Would you care to enlighten us, Becca?
There's this band. I don't know if any of you guys have heard of them, but they're called the Flaming Lips.
I knew it.
You know, but they're good. The Decemberists have some bops. Elliott Smith is my boy. Else is there? Radiohead, because I'm sad.
Mm-hmm. Can't forget about Wilco.
Wilco's full of bops. Ryan Adams.
Yep, can't forget about him either.
Those are the big boys. Been getting into Toro y Moi lately. Very funky, very good.
I remember you sent him one of the songs when we said goodbye to Mixcloud.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
The song "Yeah Right," which I've listened to quite a while since uploading that, and I don't know anything about him, but that's a good song.
That whole album is just like, while I could say it's not even like his best, but that has a very special place in my heart. What For is a killer album.
And you mentioned...
I could go on and on. I've like been too Ouroboros eating myself immersed in the local New Jersey scene.
Right. You mentioned to me a couple of times that you, at least when you were talking to me, were into Tame Impala and Big Star.
Oh yeah, those are good ones. I forget Big Star. That was really silly. Yeah. The point is, so much other music that I even forget it all until somebody else says it.
Right.
I just can't stop. Car seat headrest.
Okay.
There's a poster on my wall, and I literally did not remember until I had to look at it with my eyes.
Yeah, for everyone who can see the poster on her wall.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, for all of our viewers listening at home.
Over 100! Woo!
Yay! And as for me, I'm probably the most limited in the three of us, I would guess. I don't know. So I do go back and forth pretty regularly among our big three. But I also have two more that I call I put them together, I call the high five. I listen to the Beatles, The Who, Pink Floyd, and also Genesis and Rush pretty regularly. Other things that I'll sometimes get into, I was way into Cream in high school. In college, I got way, way, way deep into Emerson, Lake and Palmer. So that was 2016 was a hard year for me, just from that perspective. And then also, there's just some weird random other things I'll listen to. I'm also way into video game soundtracks. Like when Undertale was huge, I was constantly listening to the soundtrack for that, and
I was total bops.
the Boppinest Bops.
Boppiness.
Oh yeah, and Shovel Knight has an amazing soundtrack. I really like chiptunes. Anything 8-bit like that is immediately has my attention. I've got like the Super Smash Brothers soundtracks, and I would listen to those sometimes. Yes, really, Becca. It's good stuff. I especially like Melee soundtrack.
For everyone who can see this, which is just us two, she is literally shaking her head that her hair is bobbing up and down with her nodding.
Oh yeah, like taking up the whole screen too. It's an intense nod.
Just want to make that clear.
Yeah. And then, of course, I got to give a shout out to my boys, Ninja Sex Party. Because sometimes you just need 80s pop with dick jokes. You know?
And then you don't need much else. What was that?
Man food groups.
Oh, is there anything else worth mentioning? Not that comes right to the top of my head. But yeah, pretty limited, I guess.
I do want to just quickly give some people some context if anyone's not familiar with when you said 2016 was a hard year after you mentioned Emerson, Lake and Palmer.
Yes.
Everybody died.
Because,
yeah, that was the year when everybody died. Yes, brilliantly summed up.
Yeah, no, because Emerson, Lake and Palmer died in 2016, and I was bummed.
Yeah, I was bummed too. And for anyone who wants to hear us talk about that, there is an episode where we paid tribute to 12 of the many musicians who passed in 2016. So go check that out.
Sad boy hour.
What's that now?
Sweet and sour sad boy hour.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it was. It was. I think for me, I mean, it's really tough because I say it's tough because I listen to so much music, and it can really just be as simple as like, I like this song by this artist, even if I have no intention of listening to anything else by that artist, or if it's really just like their greatest hits, and I feel like I don't really need much else. But you know, obviously, I listen to the three bands that we have talked about: the Beatles, the Who, and Pink Floyd.
Oh, and the solo efforts, of course.
Oh yeah, can't forget the solo efforts.
Need to be mentioned that I also listen to a lot. Need to mention that I listen to like a lot of David Gilmour and Rick Wright in my spare time.
And for me, it was also Genesis, because I'm the one who introduced it to Garrett. And I really have to thank my father, because he's the one who's introduced me to a lot of music, and I keep up with my favorites, my favorite artists. And in terms of like contemporary bands, Becca did mention the Decemberists. I'm also a fan of them.
Yeah.
Thank you for your approval. And really, it's like the Decemberists, the Killers, John Mayer are like three current artists that if they come out with a new CD, I'm going to buy it. Because I did that literally with all three of those artists when they had albums out last year and this year. But you know, I listen to a lot of stuff, and I try to be open to my friends who listen to that stuff. Garrett was the one who first introduced me to Ninja Sex Party. I certainly would have looked them up simply on like name alone. I would have thought, okay, I'm gonna stay away from this.
Yeah, you're pretty good about taking friend suggestions. I'm not. Because I don't know how many times Becca has said you need to listen to Big Star, because I haven't. Sorry. And then
Our Pop Gold. You are missing out.
And then I was the one who introduced Tom to Pink Floyd back in high school, so I know that you at least take advice.
Yeah, oh yeah. And, you know, I also take suggestions that I would mainly take a casual approach, but good friends, like I'm going to mention another friend of mine who's big on the Grateful Dead. He says that music changed his life, and I'm kind of thinking, okay, cool. Maybe it'd be worth me to check out some of their music beyond just like the 10 songs that I'm not familiar with.
I mean, they only changed his life.
No,
Not that big a deal. Come on, man.
I know, and they only have more albums you can listen to in a lifetime. So you know, get to work. And even it's become like artists that I've discovered through random people. Like, I have a college professor who's really into Prince, and I only knew Prince with just like the Purple Rain soundtrack. Thank you again for your approval, Becca.
Prince is the bomb.net.
But so it was a matter of I went to my college library. I picked up a 2 CD greatest hits package of Prince, put up my phone, and I'm like, dang, there's some pretty good stuff on here. And I kind of just like, I'll take suggestions, and I may not always like them. And most of the time, I'll just be like, I choose to listen to nothing more, than this by this artist. Like, I'll tell you, like, I like Stevie Wonder, but I have not really heard more than just like his, I'm doing air quotes here, essential albums, whether it be Inner Visions, Talking Book, or Songs in the Key of Life. Because those albums are so good, it's almost like, what could be better? Now, I know there's some Stevie Wonder fans who might hear this and might throw out their computers, but
lynch us.
But that's my approach to music, and it's kind of because since I listen to so much, I can't listen to everything ever made.
Right.
Or at least not all the time.
Yeah, at least not all the time.
Some stuff that I think of when I'm thinking about what your music taste, guys, is for Tom. I think like, oh yeah, he's way into Beach Boys. He really likes Bob Dylan. What else?
Green Day.
Yes, Green Day. That was gonna say.
Yep, that's a big one.
Simon and Garfunkel.
Oh yeah, definitely. And Becca, like I said, Big Star, Ryan Adams, Elliott Smith, all the like singer-songwriting, some alternative stylings, that kind of stuff. I was like, oh yep, Becca stuff.
If it's sad, I love it.
Aww. if you ever write a book about your musical collection and taste and history, that's the title.
Yeah.
I like sad, I love it.
It's sad, I love it.
My music taste and my music career.
Oh.
But you were saying?
Yeah. I think we should move on to the next question.
Okay. All right. But I just want to quickly finish that thought. So, like, when you see these artists that we listen to and you don't, how do you feel? Or do you just simply say, like, that's their thing, not mine?
I mean, my usual reaction is, I should probably listen to that. And then I'll go to sleep and forget about it.
Aww.
Nice.
Well, then we'll move on to the next question then, because it kind of beautifully ties in to the conversation we just had. Since we listen to all these different artists, do we feel it's necessary / important to constantly immerse ourselves in the 3 artists we talk about on the show? I guess in fear of ever not becoming fans. I'll let you take this one first.
I mean, for me, I don't think, at least for me, that it's necessary that we constantly maintain our immersion within the 3 artists. For me especially, because I'll always be in a cycle of going back to it anyway, since I don't listen to too much outside of that. Because, all I ever listen to pretty much, as I've pretty much stated, is classic rock, mostly by British artists.
And the high five.
Yeah. And I don't know. I also have, like, my brain is kind of organized like an encyclopedia. So I is the best way I can describe it, is that I always have little nuggets and tidbits that I can come up with on any subject. I'm immediately prepared. Like, I'm a substitute teacher now, and I was just talking about Pink Floyd with one of my students because he was wearing a Pink Floyd shirt, and I didn't even have to really think about it, get into a mood or anything. It was just like, okay, here, let me bring up the file with all of my tidbits and facts and fun opinions and things about Pink Floyd. And
I'm sorry, I'm a little laughing. I imagine you have like a briefcase of Pink Floyd. It's like, let's talk.
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry.
That's how I feel about
Like
it.
you're knocking door to door. Like, do you have a moment to
Have you heard of our Lord and Savior, David Gilmour?
That was the exact example I was gonna go.
Although you probably would have said Rick Wright, though.
I mean, we're talking about Garrett here, though, now.
Okay, it's true.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I go back and forth between those two. Which is an improvement from before when I was just a solid Gilmore boy. But no, I can just, like, immediately start talking about the music whenever the occasion arises. And then sometimes I'll randomly get on kicks where I won't listen to music for a while. It's weird. Yeah, yeah. Instead, I'll be listening to I've recently been watching Monty Python's Flying Circus, and I'll just be listening to all their albums in the car, or listening to John Cleese's autobiography, or just other audiobooks in the car, and I won't be like concentrating on music. And then when I get back to music, it's a beautiful thing.
I just want to quickly point out when he said he had to listen to music, Becca shot this look like, how can you say that? And when Monty Python's name came out, it was like, I retract my statements.
Yeah.
That actually ties into if you were all set there. That kind of ties into my answer to this, which like that horrified look on my face the second you mentioned going on kicks of not listening to music. That I guess like to me, just because I'm constantly immersed in music, both just listening, thinking about, playing, composing, like analyzing my influences, and just like appreciating music basically 24/7. I don't necessarily find it like needed to immerse myself in these three because I'm like either trying to see where to go with my own, listening to my friends, listening to new things by other artists, and like that in a sense I need to sometimes be consciously reminded to go back to these three because influence-wise, both to what I listen to and what I try to create, these three are kind of where it started for me. And kind of where it started for a lot of the artists I like. So it ends up being an exercise, in a way, doing this podcast, of going back to something before, seeing if it still holds up to what you enjoy now, and kind of like inadvertently along the way, seeing how it like meshes in with what you like now. Like when sometimes, a lot of times, re-listening to, especially Pink Floyd albums, I'll hear like a little organ part where I'm like, oh, that's why I like X, Y, and Z artists. Like, or, oh, like, this sounds like this. And this thing that I tried to, like, write this one time sounds like this. So you make a lot of connections. It's like revisiting an old friend. It's like revisiting these things and getting a new appreciation for them, in a way. It's like, instead of immersing yourself in the same thing, it's kind of like coming back to something new.
Yeah, that's actually beautifully put. And because for me, the Beatles were essentially like the music I listened to when I was a kid. I had no desire to listen to any of the current music, and well, I can't say that 100%. You know, there would occasionally be a song I'd be like, "Oh, that's a cool song," or I would dance to it or whatever. But
that's interesting because that's kind of where I am. Were you in this elementary, middle school? That's yep. Where I live.
And so it's not like I feel the pressure all the time. For the Beatles especially, I don't feel the pressure because it's kind of like they're just a part of like my life because they've been with me for so long. And if anybody ever pointed me and said, "Hey, sing a Beatles song," I wouldn't really stand there and be like, I would just know what to do. And when it comes to other artists like The Who and Pink Floyd, just kind of going off the main three that we talk about, in a way I almost do feel a little bit of pressure for those two out of the three because they weren't really part of my life growing up. In fact, it was only a handful of albums. In middle school, I was all about Tommy and Who's Next. And for Pink Floyd, it was really Dark Side of the Moon. Again, I had my dad to thank, but like that was kind of it. And I guess it was kind of like my dad's philosophy. You know, I don't want to speak for him entirely, but it's kind of like, of those three artists, let's definitely get him into the Beatles. And
it's a great foundation,
definitely. And I feel a little bit of pressure, like especially when we're hanging out and talking, and you two might make a reference. It's funny. And it's kind of like, wait a minute. It's like I vaguely get that reference, or it's like I don't have anything to contribute because I haven't heard this album, or I didn't know that this artist did this thing, and it can be a little bit of a pressure. Now, obviously, those aren't when we record a show. When we record a show, I go in knowing exactly what I'm going to say about the topic. I've made sure I've listened to the album enough times, and the pressure is not on during the show because it's like, these are my thoughts. They don't necessarily have to change. You two could easily say something that makes me think in my brain, oh, you're absolutely right. Why did I not think of that?
Yeah, that kind of made me think of probably a decent question that we should ask. The way you were talking about the way you approach recording the show. It's like what do we have our own like rituals or ways of taking notes before the show? Um, some may surprise you a little bit, some probably won't. I like to make a lot of notes about the show that we're going to do in particular about the album we're reviewing. I listen to it at least twice before we record it in the same week, so that it's pretty fresh. And I'll make a lot of notes, mostly about, if you listen to the way I describe the songs, mostly about the way it sounds. I like this instrument doing this thing, and I really like the texture of the voice in this passage or something. And then for the more plot-based albums like, The Wall or Tommy or something, I'm the one who's usually coming up with the plot summaries for each song.
I'm sure this is probably the answer that does not surprise anyone. I just kind of listen to it in the time leading up to recording, and I just go in.
Yeah.
I don't really write anything down. I just kind of go by, like, impressions, just, what strikes me. Lyrically, musically. Like, I feel like if it stands out enough for me to mention it, I'm going to remember it.
This just
Which is probably why I don't say too much.
This just
it's
in,
like
Becca tends to wing it.
Sorry, Becca, can you say that again?
It's like wasabi, only a little bit at a time. Too spicy.
I like that
a
analogy.
little bit, packing a big punch.
Oh, man. And it's probably going to be no surprise for anyone as well. I'm on the same boat with Garrett. I'll listen to the album at least twice, and I'll make sure I even listen to it on the day that we've agreed to record it, before we record it. And I'll even become a little paranoid that if I hear any other music, it's like, get out. I am not talking about you.
Pet sounds.
Pet sounds, thank you.
we're talking about Amagama today, not Pet Sounds. Go away.
Yeah, get out of here, good album for not so good album.
That'll be an interesting day when we review Amagama.
You ready for that, Costas?
God, I'm gonna cry.
We're doing that for you, man.
My God.
But that's what I will do, and I will also write down notes, and I will be the one who writes down literally like the track listing, my personal thoughts on the song, and usually there'll be the notes I write when I'm listening to it. Mm-hmm. When it's like, oh yeah, this happens, the guitar does this, oh, I love that, I love the vocals on this, or I'll even try to take it a little step further. Like, do the vocals sound nasal, or just something like that?
Yeah. Like
something that could lead to a bit of a discussion rather than just like, oh my god, I love it, you love it too, oh, that's so cool. And
that gets boring.
Yeah, it gets a little bit boring. And as we've kind of joked about, it doesn't really make for much discussion either.
Oh my god, it's so good. Oh, and then there's one more thing about the way I prepare to it. I like to get a lot of historical context for the album in relation to the band and everything, so I'll just go onto Wikipedia and see what it has to say.
I'm actually very similar.
Wikipedia plays a giant role in Triple Threat. It should basically be
our fourth or fifth member.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Now, you mentioned Costas a minute ago, and I would like to bring up another question that he sent, this one to me, that I don't think I've told him about either of you before.
I specifically requested that you keep it from me.
Yeah. He actually, sent me a question and a half. The half question, I guess, was, why don't you upload very often?
You see, Costas,
I was like,
we have this thing called life that we live.
Yeah. I mean, I know that our only relationship with you, Costas, is as hosts of a show that you listen to, but there are different things happening.
Yeah.
Including school, work at school, in the case of some of us.
Oh, yeah.
It's just, we do it when we can.
Right.
And if that means that we have to take a 5-month break, then that's how it is.
Yeah. By the way, Costas, I didn't mean to sound mean or anything like that, but that is essentially what it is like, And especially there are many weekends
Friendly
where...
sass.
Don't need your sass, Costas. God.
Oh, like we were directing friendly sass at him. Very gentle sass.
Yeah.
Yes.
But,
tender sass for our beloved audience member.
Yeah.
Thank you for
I keep entertaining viewers and listeners to be a dick.
Yeah, if we are not, in the same area, because there are plenty of weekends. We like to record on the weekends where we're just not all available,
Yeah.
and we think, well, it wouldn't really be right doing it with just the two of us. Now, there have been some cases where we say, you know what, you two go ahead. There's not much I can contribute, or I know we've been planning this for months. I don't want to keep stalling it. Go ahead, do it.
Yeah.
And
we hate to do that, though, because we really like the dynamic between the three of us.
we are called Triple Threat, for Pete's sake.
Yeah.
We like to have all three of us here to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of why we don't always record all the time, because we can't be here all the time.
Yeah. I will say that you mentioned the two-person shows. I am currently editing one, so if Becca knows which one, because it was one that the two of us did together.
I know which one.
Yeah, and
Surprise!
it's a surprise. It's gonna come out soon-ish, whenever I get around to it, because I take more time to edit than Tom does.
That show might have been the longest I had spoken people words uninterrupted.
Possibly.
They'll give people something to look out for.
Yeah, because it's just Becca and me, and Tom, shuts up for a while because he's across the world.
Yep, I was in Spain at the
Not
time.
even across the world.
Yeah, so there really wasn't, and the 8-hour difference would have really not worked.
Nope. So look forward to that. It's going to come out at some point eventually. But Costas' actual question for us was kind of a game changer, I guess, a little bit. He wanted to know if we were interested in reviewing any Led Zeppelin.
I think Becca's in.
Get an immediate close-up on Becca.
Listeners viewing at home and our viewers listening at home, I literally almost smacked my big old dumb old face into my webcam.
Yeah, we almost...
Girl loves Led Zeppelin, and I would be 8 billion% down for that, as the youths say.
Tom, what do you think of that?
Well, I do like Led Zeppelin. I actually own their first. I'm literally like looking at my CD collection, counting 6 albums, which is their first album all the way up to Physical Graffiti on CD, and the new remastered form. So you can tell, I'm a bit more than just a casual fan, but only ever so slightly more than a casual fan.
Mm-hmm.
That I want to own these, because Led Zeppelin, even if I may not know a lot about them, like their history and discography, blah, 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 it's just one of these things I kind of know that they are one of the best bands of rock. Even if I don't listen to them as much as other artists, it's kind of like one of those things that you just, know.
Mm.
So I would be down for reviewing Led Zeppelin. Now, I would obviously go back and listen to their albums as I would if we were reviewing any album.
Sure.
But I'm saying that it can be done, and I like them enough to say yes.
Interesting.
What are you gonna say?
No, I'm not gonna say. I'm not gonna say no.
You're gonna say no.
I'm not gonna say no. I'm straight up saying I'm open to it as well. And also, I'm not familiar with much Led Zeppelin. Only the radio hits, really. And I have the Mothership 2 CD collection, but that's pretty much all I've listened to, and I haven't listened to it often. I'm open to it, because some of the stuff I've heard I've enjoyed. Some of the other stuff I could do without. But, I'm open to it, is what I'm saying.
It'll be an adventure.
Yeah.
If anything, I'll just put this out right now, Costas, if you're listening. Do you want to come on the show and talk about Led Zeppelin with us?
Yeah, that would be interesting, yeah.
It would not be the first time that we've had, a fourth host talking to us.
Yeah, one from across the pond.
Yeah. And it could be very much as, if we ever review an album of theirs, we could bring on someone else as a sort of an outsider's point of view. And by all means, Costas, if that wants to be you, I wouldn't object to it.
Yeah, man, shoot me a message, let me know.
Please come through. I have a tiny Led Zeppelin shirt that I've been cramming my fat bod into since the 5th grade. I love Led Zeppelin. Let's talk. Let's do this.
You're not fat, Becca. You're beautiful.
You only see from the nose up right now on this webcam. Also, I did not say fat was not beautiful.
Oh, okay. That's fair. That's fair.
The next question that we had, this was the last question we got from our YouTube audience. This is from Claudio Rivera, and he says, I've been here since 59. Obviously, he's 59 subscribers, not the year 59.
Oh my God.
Says, I've been here since 59, and I am excited. My question is, what is your idea of a good modern artist? It's a very interesting question, Claudia. First of all, thank
I've
you.
been thinking about this a lot lately, actually.
So, I just, the wording of the question is confusing. It's like, what do you look for in a modern artist, or who do you think are good modern artists, or what?
It's probably the first one, since the question, the exact words is, what is your idea of a good modern artist? What does it take? What are some key elements?
Yeah, what does it take for someone to be, like, a game changer? I'm thinking someone who's, like, you know, blazing the trails the way that these three artists we discussed did back in their time. Like, what do we think it takes for someone to not necessarily be of similar caliber today, but, like, who are a bunch of dumb youths like us going to be talking about in, like, 50 years?
Okay.
Like, what does it take to do that? And I really think that it comes down to things that, you know, these three artists and artists like Bowie, artists like Prince did, you know, unabashedly be yourself, because that's what art is about, and that was what makes the most relatable art that resonates with people and is therefore, like, successful both in, you know, being remembered and also all of the commercial capitalism nonsense that keeps it on the charts and keeps those albums selling. Like, you gotta have a unique sound that stands out, but also, of course, you know, pop sensibilities a lot of times maintain intact. Like, it's gotta be new, different, and a lot of times that comes from an artist just being weird and being strongly and steadfastly weird in their own weird way, but also very personal. That, like, human beings can hear it and be like, another human being made this, and I love this. So I think, basically, this whole ramble boiled down to a concise statement on what it takes for, like, a good modern artist is really not being afraid to mix influences and, like, try something new and get weird, but stay human. Because that's what music's about. That's what art's about.
Yeah.
That's human communication in some of its rawest forms.
Yeah, I totally agree.
First of all, sorry.
That
was 2 for 2 of Becca's, like, nice, sincere rambles in this episode alone. So woo!
Well done.
Do you see what 100 subscribers is doing to us?
We're actually getting better at this.
We're getting smarter.
Like, as for what we look for in modern art, yeah, it's a weird question for me, because you have to keep in mind that I don't really look for modern artists. They just kind of happen upon me, and even then, they've got to, like, really turn my head to keep me invested. Because, as I said, I'm a guy who knows what he likes and likes what he knows. So, I guess for me, I would agree with Becca that the big thing is being honest, being yourself, and trying not to be so much like anyone else. On the flip side of that, though, knowing exactly what I like, I'm a guitar, drums, and bass kind of guy. Always have been. Keyboards, awesome too. So I can't get into anything that's, like, fully synthesized. You know, there's so much, like, pop stuff that's happening now that's entirely made on a computer, and a lot of rap is like that too. But and I can't bring myself to get into it. But even so, I'm also the kind of guy who says, like, chiptunes are amazing. So I'm kind of contradicting myself at the same time. I don't know. There's just something so pure about the guitar, drums, and bass combo to me. Because it's The Who is the first band I truly fell in love with. And then the Beatles and Pink Floyd are kind of offshoots of that with extra guitars or extra keyboards. So, I don't know exactly where I'm going with this.
I'll pick it up from here.
Sure. I guess you get the idea.
Well, I don't think what you're saying is wrong. I think for me, I'm going to echo a lot of things that Becca said as well. And being yourself is important. But I want to throw in another thing. Is be yourself and be unapologetic for it.
Unapologetically, steadfastly, just your weird little self.
Exactly. And of the modern artists that I listen to, and that's not to say I tune into modern radio on a daily basis. I don't. But probably the most recent artist, and I say recent in terms of like when he had his first release, which was in 2011, would be Ed Sheeran. I do like Ed Sheeran, and I know his stuff is played on the radio, but the way I see it, these are songs that he wanted to write anyway. They just happened to become really successful hits with catchy choruses, and he's a very good crafter of pop songs, but also a good crafter of these songs are written by him, and they mean something to him. Like his most recent album, there's a popular song, Castle on the Hill. It's a really good song, and it's about his childhood, and it's a really great pop song at the same time. So to me, I'm like, you go, man. That's awesome that you had a hit with something that is personal to you, and so many people love it and can probably relate to it because he's being himself, being unapologetic, and that is something that I think is really cool. I'm kind of reflecting something that we talked about when we did our 2016 tribute show, is that these artists that we love so much, these guys are so talented, and a lot of them, to probably almost all of them, didn't care if people didn't accept them.
Yeah.
Was Bowie going to stop if we all said, oh, what is he doing dressing up in those clothes? No, get out of here.
Yeah.
Would we have loved, if Prince had come onto the scene and be like, oh, that guitar is weird, get out of here. That's what we love about these artists. It's like...
Or even just like the fact that, Prince, he played covers when he did the Super Bowl. It's like, wait a second.
Foo Fighters, that's right.
Yeah, he wasn't
it's like
playing
you're
his
Prince.
own
You have
music.
like 30 years of music.
Yeah,
but he's a Foo Fighters song.
But that's one thing that I always loved about. I say always. I've only heard like 5 Prince songs ever, but one
thing that you admire about Prince.
Yeah, one thing I admire about Prince is that he just played what he wanted to play, and I thought that was so cool that he didn't. I wouldn't say didn't feel the pressure, but didn't feel the need to cave into the pressure of just playing the stuff that he did. It's just like, I want to play what I want to play, and if I wrote it or not, then whatever.
And one more thing, and this is really my personal thing, if a modern artist wants to come out that I want to listen to, no auto-tune.
Yes.
I disagree.
Really?
I feel like if it's used creatively, it can add a depth to the song and almost be used as another instrument.
I'm not going to argue that auto-tune can be used creatively. It certainly can. It's just whenever I hear the sound of it, it just turns me off completely. Like I think of Paul McCartney on his album Memory Almost Full. There's a song Feet in the Clouds. There's a whole 20 seconds of auto-tune. At the time, I didn't know what it was. I thought, this is a weird effect he's using on his voice. And it's kind of one of those things when I heard it was auto-tune, it was like, oh, I don't like that part now.
Yeah, I have to agree. Even, The Who using it on Be Lucky for... for like 2 seconds. And it's just like, I get it, guys. You're making a joke out of it.
People can't see this. I'm almost cringing in my chair right now.
Yeah, I don't like the sound of it either, and I don't want to get this to like soapbox levels of complaining, but there was one promo they did about the guy who invented autotune, and one of his grand visions was that anyone can sound like a great vocalist. I'm like, but you're erasing the uniquity of talent, and anyway.
So that's like that's more on a personal level.
Yeah.
But I'm also thinking about something that I read in one of the White Stripes liner notes. They're I can't even say contemporary artists. Not only do they not exist as a band, their last album was like in the mid 2000s. So like pseudo contemporary. But in one of the liner notes, it kind of explicitly said like no computers were involved in the making of this album. Essentially saying nothing was done fake or electronically. What you're hearing are real drums, real guitars, real effects used by real pedals on the guitar.
Interesting.
And it was kind of one of those, it's like, thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, like, they use it as a joke, because this was, like, the mid-2000s when it's like, you can make a record on a computer? Well, we can do that for you.
Yeah.
And Jack White's like, I don't want to. And I'm not going to. So that's why I'm like, be yourself and be unapologetic.
Yeah, and then you mentioned that label on the album makes me think of, for a long time, Queen's albums carried the label no synthesizers were used in this record, and it made me think like, and everybody loves Queen now, so Like, no, seriously, everybody loves Queen. Shut up. Uh,
It's true.
It's true.
it's like by saying autotune is gross, both of us, that will that be disproven in later years, sort of thing? You know, like how synthesizers were proved to be pretty okay instruments depending on how you use them. Will autotune be a pretty good instrument depending on how you use it, 50 years from now?
I don't.
That kind of thought comes to mind, just the way you said that. I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't poo-poo this thing right immediately.
Well, I think, Claudio, you get our basic answers for what we think makes a good modern artist.
Yeah.
And
like, that's why I love Ninja Sex Party. They
they're very unapologetic about what they do.
Yeah, because it's just like, let's make 80s synth pop, and we'll make really rude and inappropriate humor in it, and a lot of Lonely Island style humor in the beginning of it, and it's just like, okay, cool, you do your thing, Danny and Brian, and I love you for it.
All right. Well, that covers all the questions that we got, but I do want to throw out one final question. You kind of alluded to this earlier,
sure,
to kind of wrap this thing up, since this is kind of a meta question, since we are the Triple Threat podcast. How often do we go back and listen to From Whence We Came?
Oh, God. There are times where I'll go back and listen to fairly recent episodes.
Me too. And then that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, like, I'll listen to Live at Leeds a couple of times, or I really like the Creation review. Because
that was a lot of fun.
That was, like, the first time we talked in months, and we were all in a sort of punchy, goofy mood, talking about weird Pink Floyd songs from before Dark Side. That was a good one, but earlier stuff like going back to hear Sgt. Pepper or Tommy or Dark Side, or even something a little further on like Who's Next. I don't know. It's cringy to look back on it.
It's super cringy.
Yeah.
We're all such different people now.
Exactly.
That's true.
Like, I never understood. I mean, not making it seem like particular artists in our craft of this lovely. I mean, it is a craft. It is a good podcast, but it's like not making us do it. But like, kind of like how music artists sometimes say that their old stuff they like can't really go back and listen to it, or like they don't play the old songs anymore live. Like, you grow, you change, and also like, God, what was I, like 17 or 16 when we started this? I was such a cringy person back there. Oh my lord. But yeah, I don't know. The answer to that is no.
No, we tend not to go back.
Yeah, I've only gone back a few times when, maybe a joke will come into my head and it'd be like, oh, that was a funny moment. I'm going to go pull up that episode and relive that funny moment.
Right.
And for me, the earliest I go back to would be the Division Bell show and the show we did on New. Both came out in 2014. Anything beyond that is like, I'm putting you in the back of the filing cabinet.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that I absolutely hate them. I mean, I can't say that because I haven't heard them. No. But Becca's totally right. We have changed. And when we started out, we might save this in depth completely for when we do a 5-year retrospective. But a lot of us, and I'll be admitting to it myself, a lot of us really didn't know, quote unquote, what we were doing. We just knew that we liked these bands. And quite a few of the early reviews were nothing but like, it's a good song. What do you think? I like it too. And then it's like, do you like this? Yes. Do you? Yes. And then
moving on.
And there wasn't much of a challenge. And I'll let you guys know straight up. There have been episodes of Triple Threat, or even before when we had the Record Rant podcast, where we recorded them and I straight up just not released them.
Right.
Because things were awkward. And it's like, this is not good listening material.
No. It
may be fun for us to talk about it, but for people to listen in on, they'd be like, what the hell is this?
Yeah, this is stupid. This is dumb. Yeah, and I have even like floated the idea around in my head. I don't think I've ever told either of you about it. It's like, I don't want to like remake episodes because that's dumb and pointless. But maybe making retrospective reviews of our own reviews, or would that be getting too meta?
That's very meta.
That is extremely meta.
Alright, if we need to recap right now as grown-ass human beings with abilities to think critically and not just think, well, this album's said it's the best, so I say it's the best because I'm 16 and have no brain. Here's just a meta review right now on our wonderful special. Dark Side is good. Who's Next is good. Tommy is full of bangers and makes me cry. Did we do Quadrophenia yet? Quadrophenia saved my life.
We haven't done Quadrophenia
What else
yet.
did we talk about? Sgt. Pepper's overrated. Revolver and Rubber Soul are full of bops. Did I say Quadrophenia? Yeah.
Yes, you did.
Despite the fact that
Wish You Were
we...
Here is full of bops and also makes me cry.
Huh.
And 5 out of 5 stars for all of them, completely sincerely. Still at age 22.
Yeah.
Right.
Despite the fact
and
that...
that's probably about as much as I talked in like all 10 of those episodes combined. So we're good.
Yeah.
We got it covered.
Yeah, for those who missed all the episodes, Becca literally just told you what you need to know.
Oh, wait, and also, Us and Them Slaps and Rick Race My Boy. There we go.
Gotta get that in there.
There it is. Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned Quadrophenia because as much as we love it, and we haven't actually reviewed it yet. Oh, dude.
We haven't reviewed it as a trio because we made the mistake of, before I met Becca, we reviewed it on the old show that we had, the Record Rant, but that was so many years ago.
Yeah, it's
and
also
and I really don't listen to that one.
No, that partly because that episode was 2 hours of me and you talking about it and being weird.
Yeah.
But I would love to go...
Naps that long, boy.
I would love to listen back... not listen, but I would love to talk about Quadrophenia soon.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind revisiting it. And the last thing I'll say about the old episodes, people, is that we are not the be-all, end-all for the reviews that we do.
No.
You know, if I say Tommy is an A album, true, I'll always pretty much think that. But there are plenty of days when I'm certainly not in the mood for Tommy, or I'm just straight up not thinking about it. Or opinions can definitely change.
Yeah.
And on a review, I might say this song doesn't do anything for me, and it's like, oh, why did I say that? Or the one specific example. I'm sorry to do this to you, Garrett. When we did the new review, and the first thing you said was, I like it. I don't love it. It's something I could do without for the rest of my life. And you've played it a lot more since we've done that review.
Yeah. Knew it was a bop, you know.
So it's one of those things where it's
agree.
like, ooh, that's in the review that you said that.
I agree, because there are definitely some things that I've changed in my opinions of things. Like I said in my review of Wish You Were Here, that it's my favorite Floyd album, and I wouldn't say that anymore. I've also said stuff like, I didn't like Us and Them on Dark Side, and people are yeah.
And Becca especially, she's doing it right now.
And people go like, what the what? You don't like the best Pink Floyd song? And I'm like, now
Becca's like, exactly.
Yeah, now I appreciate it a lot more. It's not my favorite, but I do appreciate it more.
Thumbs up from both of us. 2 thumbs up from both of us. So that's all I got in terms of questions from YouTube, from the Facebook message that Costa sent us, and questions that we had. Becca, just want to quickly throw it over to you. Did you think of anything for us to continue with?
Honestly, the question that I probably would have brought to the table was brought by our buddy, was it Claudio?
About the modern artist?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
So, like, shouts out to you for that one. That was some good food for thought.
Yeah.
So Tom, when you asked me if I had any questions, I was, like, double fisting ice creams.
Okie dokie.
So I was very focused on my ice cream.
I mean, yeah.
I think we really talked about a lot of good.
I'm happy with what we've done here today.
Exactly. So just
question. I answered all of them with my big fat mouth.
well, before we sign off, we definitely want to thank you for the questions. So shout out to Claudio Rivera, Costas Hansis, and again, I'm so sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. Isabel and Jaden's Garden Ventures. Even if you didn't send in a question, thank you for congratulating us.
And thanks to all our recent subs pushing us over that edge.
Exactly.
Yeah. You came in at a good time when we actually know how to talk about stuff.
Truth.
And who knows, maybe we'll only get better from here on out.
I think that we would.
Yeah, and then we'll look back on
God,
this
I
one
hope
and
so.
Oh, I hope so too. And then we'll look back on this one and say it's not good.
What the hell were we talking about in 2018,
if
y'all?
you say that this one's not good, then that must be good.
But I will say right now, I'm saying this is good and I'm happy with it.
Same.
All right.
Garrett's like, give me 5 minutes.
So, while I'm editing, I'll be like, all right.
All right. Believe me, that's a lot of times when I'm in the editing, there will be awkward comments, and it's like, you know what? It wouldn't hurt to take this out. Or
Yeah.
it's like, oh, that's a cringy moment. Why did I listen to it? You know,
Yeah.
delete it.
And you
listen-
don't even edit like I do.
That's true.
Because I take out all the stutters and the ums and the pauses.
Yeah, your edits are a lot more sharp and abrupt than mine.
Yeah.
Mine
Because
are.
I don't really care how it tracks as long as the information gets through.
See, you listeners are getting like the inside story about editing and like the differences between us. His is sharp. If you've heard the Live It Leads, you'll quite literally hear sentences spliced together.
Yeah.
And if you've heard
Also, Endless Wire. Yeah.
no, yeah, you did Endless River.
That's what I meant. Yes.
Yeah. And for me, the way I edit them is like if you're listening to a conversation, and if there's a 2-second pause, screw it. There's a 2-second pause. So there you go. Now go forth and figure out who's going to edit each episode from here on out.
Yeah. You'll hear it. Don't worry.
Our viewers listening at home. Our listeners viewing at home. Our viewers.
Didn't quite come out of your mouth right, huh?
Derping at home.
Words are hard.
Well, hey, the main show.
Music is easier.
Well, hey, the show's pretty much done anyway. So again, thank you to all the subscribers who have made this Q&A possible that we could celebrate surpassing 100 subscribers. Again, big thank you to the people who sent in questions, and we hope that we got the answers that you were looking for.
Yeah.
Plugs. Let's do them really quickly. You can follow me. What was that, Becca?
That was a thank you to everybody. That's my plug.
Okay. Yeah, you'll find our links down in the description where you can find our social medias and respective YouTube channels. So go check them out, subscribe to the show, and that's all I got. So for Triple Threat signing off, I'm Tom Rutia, and with me has been Garrett Hicks.
Yo, I'm out, y'all.
And Becca Cristino.
Thanks.
Thanks so much, guys, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, it's Tom from Triple Threat, and thank you so much for listening to our special Q&A episode celebrating more than 100 subscribers. If you have any comments for us or even suggestions for future episodes, then leave a comment on our YouTube page. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't yet. Thanks again for listening, and we will see you all next time. Bye.
Prince is the bomb.net.
And
We're off topic, but like, y'all ever read that thing where like this one like journalism-ish outlet like was doing this "What's in My Fridge" series, and they went in Prince's fridge, and there were like 10 pounds of Dunkaroos in there.
I had no idea.
I'd
I'd never heard of that. Never heard of What's in My Fridge.
If this makes it into a blooper reel, like all 100 of you Google that right now. You guys, I'm gonna send you the link.
All right.
Thank you.
Well,
Anyway, sorry, continue.
But whether it's in the blooper reel or the whole show, people will hear that.
Mm-hmm.
I guarantee you that. But kind of ties into the answer that I was marinating and preparing in my head as well.
Hold that thought. I'm gonna make a note that I think that was the longest Becca has ever talked uninterrupted on this podcast. So, way to go, Becca.
Nice, and it's probably one of the things of most actual merit that I've ever said on this show.
Yeah.
Other than,
Yeah.
listen, like, let me tell you, I love Rick Raid so much.
It's a good song.
I'm 17, and, heck.
Or just, what do you have to say about this song, Becca? It's good.
It slaps, and Rick Raid's my boy. Next question.
in case you did not know, she's gonna infuse that in every time. What do you think? It's good. Rick Rice, my boy, by the way. And next song.
Yeah.
It slaps. What's the next song? It's a bop. Can we review any and all remixes of the Walmart Kid meme?
What?
Have you guys seen the Walmart Kid meme?
I'm afraid
Kids
not.
yodeling in like the aisles.
Oh no. All right.
I'm afraid I don't know what you speak of.
Yeah. Just
Anyway, sorry.
while Tom is answering the question, why don't you send us the link?
Okay.
So Tom, immersion.
Yes. I'll let you take this one first.
I mean, for me.
I'm sorry. I just want to make sure I understand the question.
Okay.
Do you want me to repeat it?
Or do you want to try and repeat it back?
So the question, if I'm not wrong, is like, given that we listen to so much other stuff, like, do we still years later feel it's important to immerse ourselves in these three artists?
Not even years later. I wouldn't even say not even years later. Kind of like on a daily basis. Like it's like if you haven't fed your dog in a while, or you haven't watered the tree in a while. It's like oh crap! I haven't listened to Who in a while. Tommy, let's play it right now.
Okay.
I'm exaggerating, but I hope.
Do we have
like,
to?
Do we feel an intense, like, borderline biological need?
Yeah.
Do we have to maintain our love for these?
Yeah, since we
listening?
do a show about these things that we love. I'm exaggerating a bit, but I hope it helps you understand the question.
No, absolutely. Exaggeration really helps me like this stuff. Okay. Anyways, yes. So sorry, Garrett. You were saying people words, and I'm gonna let this marinate in my brain space.
Thank you.
Marinate.
God,
marinate.
I haven't had dinner yet. I'm hungry.
Sure.
No. To answer the what?
I said, "Oh God, I'm a dick. I just ate pizza rolls in front of you."
It's okay. We got the almond cookies to the rescue.
Oh yeah.
There you go.
I want to have that.
All right.
After I answer the question.
Okay. That'll be your treat for answering it. Sorry.
Thanks, Master. All right. So to answer the question, I will say, going back and listening to old Triple Threats is
embarrassing.
It's a weird experience.
Yep. Oh yeah.
It's partly because I didn't realize how much my voice had lowered since we started when I was in high school. And I was 20, I think. Yeah.
2013. Yeah, we would have turned 20 that year.
God. My voice has dropped so much lower. I don't know why. 2 CDs is the rule of thumb for me in a band.
For compilations?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you want to get into a band, listen to 2 CDs worth of stuff, because 1 isn't enough.
Okay.
So it automatically starts muted.
We are getting
because
sound.
That's a useful microphone, right? We're getting sound now?
That might have anything to do with, like, making sure there's no weird, like, feedback or noises right when you plug it in. Or...
Maybe.
That could be it. I mean, he's more the audio engineer than I am.
I don't know much. I just know how the different ways I can fuck it up.
Believe me, all I know about microphones. I just talk, and does it pick me up? It does. Okay, cool. That's all I care about.
Right.
Do I have to yell? All right, I will.
Okay. So as we were just discussing, we only had 3 comments on our Q&A video where we asked for questions, and out of the 3 comments, 2 were actually questions. So I just went ahead and wrote all 3 comments down, and then
I got some additional ones.
Yeah, Garrett and I each came up with a question. That way we don't have to just answer the 2 questions and then say, okay,
right, thanks
for being here, and here's to 100 more.
Conversation comes to a halt. Gotta love the pizza rolls.
Well, have you seen that commercial where it's the McCafe coffee commercial where the mom's kids are arguing, and when she drinks the coffee, they just stop talking. That's kind of, and because it's like, hold on, nothing interrupts my coffee.
Wow.
I imagine pizza rolls would be a very similar story. All right,
Okay.
I'll just pause the recording. Time out.